Hello, welcome to Guitars and Music. I hope you'll consider subscribing. Today we're going to talk about, I think, kind of something exciting in music, which isn't new, but in some ways I feel like it is new. And we're going to talk about the first Bobby Whitlock solo album. I've got my hands full here. And then I'm going to say a little bit about his autobiography, which I recently purchased. So it's a very interesting read. So I'm going to say a little bit about the album and then a little bit about the book. And you know, Bobby Whitlock has a channel on YouTube, and I've been watching it almost every video he does, and I think that's kind of, in terms of music, that might be one of the best channels on YouTube. And I noticed he has more subscribers, but it's nothing like some of these huge guitar channels. But I think it's one of the best channels on YouTube. I mean, if you want to talk about speaking with authority on rock and roll, and he makes a lot of videos. They're really good with his wife, Coco Carmel, who seems really nice and helpful, and also a good musician, by the way, because I saw them both in Atlanta at Eddie's Attic in 2017. And Bobby Whitlock actually signed this record, Delaney and Bonnie on Tour with Eric Clapton. That's Bobby Whitlock's signature. He also told me in our little brief signing meeting that those are Bob Dylan's feet. So that was kind of neat. But I wanted to start talking a little bit about the album. You know, I'm going to be honest, I didn't exactly know what to expect when I listened to it, because I think when we always hear Bobby Whitlock, we always think of him as a guy in Eric Clapton's band. Even though Derek and the Dominoes wasn't supposed to be Eric Clapton and his band, it was supposed to be a solo band, but it kind of ended up being the Eric Clapton Duane Allman show. And I think Bobby Whitlock, and I guess I was kind of like this, you view him as a good musician who was in that band. He was also on George Harrison, All Things Must Pass. He was on the first Eric Clapton solo album. And of course, he played with Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett. But even before that, I think he did stuff with Stax Records, coming out of Memphis, which is the area he's from. He's done stuff with Stephen Stills. The guy's definitely been around. Like, you listen to him talk, he's met a lot of people. But I guess I kind of, maybe like some people, I saw him as a member of a band. But I bought this, and I should know better, because really he co-wrote all those songs on Layla. So I don't know, and sang them, with that kind of Sam and Dave, Eric and Bobby trade-off that was a duo. Really, it wasn't Eric Clapton solo, but I guess it does seem to people kind of like Eric Clapton, and Bobby Whitlock was in Eric Clapton's band. But I bought this, and I was really I wasn't surprised. I'm not gonna say what's the word. I was impressed by how much I liked it. I figured it would be good, but I mean, I really did like it a lot. I mean, I was very impressed, and I kind of wondered why I'd never heard it before. I don't know. If I do say so myself, I know a lot of the albums from this period, and I feel like I do. And I'd never really run across this album before. I didn't know much about it, so I ordered this over the internet. There it is, the first Bobby Whitlock solo album. You can see the back. Inside, I miss these days when you got beautiful photography. That is Bobby Whitlock and Paula Boyd, Patty Boyd's sister, and also Jenny Boyd's sister. Patty Boyd, of course, is the muse behind Something in the Way She Moves. She was married to George Harrison and then married to Eric Clapton. And she's Layla, she was the Layla, the mystery woman of Layla, as it were. But that's her sister, Paula Boyd, and Bobby Whitlock, and she went out for quite a while, or and he loved her a lot, I guess. And that's her. And then you can see here some of the photographs. I really miss the days when you got all that photography and kind of cool packaging with albums. By the way, there's a newer version of this that's been released, and I originally ordered that, and it was less expensive. And then I went on eBay, and for more money, I bought an old beat-up copy, and I actually paid more money for an old beat-up copy. But, I feel better because this is from the time. This is a product of a very special time in music. It's not a re-release from the 1990s or the 2000s. This is one of the original ones. And so it's definitely seen better days. The guy that sold it on eBay, he didn't even try to present it as mint condition or anything. He said fair to good or something like that. But I didn't care. It's a good album. And so let's talk about it a little bit. This is a very good album. This was recorded right as Derek and the Dominoes were breaking up. I think it's actually was what he was using studio time that was supposed to be the Derek and the Dominoes' second album. But it's got Eric Clapton on it, George Harrison, Jim Gordon. I guess this would probably be the last time Jim Gordon and Eric Clapton appeared on an album together. And I think they'd already had a big fight. And they kind of worked it out so they weren't necessarily in the same space at the same time, but they're both on the album. Klaus Voormann on bass, Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett, and then it's got what I think's a really important ingredient that I want to talk about, Jim Price and Bobby Keys. So it's got a horn section. Man, this is a good album. There's a song here with strings from the LA Symphony Orchestra. It's got a couple songs that are kind of twangy country that breaks it up a little bit. I think there's another guitar player on that still, but it's a good album. It's good songwriting and it's a great band. And I found myself wondering now, why aren't we hearing more about this band? Because this is a George Harrison, Eric Clapton. It's got Bobby Keys, Jim Price, Jim Gordon. And I sort of think it was, it must have been a marketing thing or something, because this is that little coterie of musicians that did all that great stuff. This is a lot of the same guys from George Harrison, All Things Must Pass, Derek and the Dominoes. It's got, shades of Leon Russell in it. It sounds kind of like that. It's got that early 70s vibe to it. And that is my favorite period of music, early 70s. But it's got some really good songs on it. It opens up with Where There's a Will, There's a Way. Now, that's on that Delaney and Bonnie live album. It's just a killer song. And one of the things that I think is interesting, several of these have got a good horn section. And, I found myself thinking, now, why the hell didn't they have a cool horn section like that on Derek and the Dominoes? It adds so much. And they had that horn section actually on the first Eric Clapton solo album, like Slunky and Never Been So Lonesome and A Long Way From Home. You had horns on there. This is basically that first Eric Clapton solo album band, give or take. So I found myself thinking, a lot of this, I'm not saying it's better than Derek and the Dominoes. That's a classic album, but I did kind of wonder, why couldn't they have blended a little bit of this approach with Derek and the Dominoes, particularly for a second album? It's got that song for Paula is really nice, and it's got that kind of country rock, not southern rock, country rock edge, but that it's kind of got an acoustic sound at the beginning, and it ends with just a really nice full kind of jam on, and it reminds me a lot of like Graham Parsons, or there was another guy around this time named Terry Reid. It's kind of got that, I don't want to say country, but that kind of organic, very American sound, but I think it translated well to British artists too. So it's got a couple twangers on it. Another one here is A Game Called Life. It's got a flute on it. It's very beautiful acoustic guitar with the flute. There's just some really nice music in here. Day Without Jesus, that's gospel. It sounds like some old African American gospel song with the Hammond B3 organ, just great, and it's got the big background vocals, and that's what I kind of wondered. Now, why didn't they do this with Derek and the Dominoes? I get it. Okay, Dwayne Allman kind of showed up, and it sort of turned into the Dwayne and Eric show. And all those songs, that's a double album, Derek and the Dominoes, Layla and Other Sordid Love Songs, but they're all kind of organ, and the piano's really just on Layla, organ, bass, drums, and 2 guitars. And this mixes it up so much stylistically and in terms of instrumentation, and I think it adds a lot. If there's one thing I wish Eric Clapton and George Harrison would have played a little bit more. I think they're kind of pulling back because it's a Bobby Whitlock solo album, but there's some nice guitar playing on there, and I think if they had kind of taken a more pronounced role, it would have been even better. But this one, The Scenery Has Slowly Changed, that's got some nice licks on it from Eric Clapton. One of the best songs in here is Back in My Life Again, which again, it sounds like blood, sweat, and tears. It's got those horns in it are just killer. It's R&B. That's what I mean. I found myself thinking now, this. I feel like I don't know. I'm a little too young to remember this. I remember the first time I heard Layla. I can even remember I was. It was the summer of 1975, and I was in my early teens. I was. I don't want to give my age out, but I think I was about 14. So I was a little too young to I was still listening to Bubblegum, when this was out. But so I was alive, but I was into Bubblegum. So I missed it, but I think this kind of fell on deaf ears. And here's another thing. I think it was maybe, I don't know if it was a marketing thing, because unless it's somewhere in the fine small print, I did not see Eric Clapton's name on this album. I didn't see George Harrison's name on this album. Maybe it's on there. Produced by Bobby Whitlock and Andy Johns for Jimmy Miller Productions. Produced by Bobby Whitlock and I don't have my glasses on. Sugar Daddy Music. Yeah, I don't see that. So you basically had a Beatle, Eric Clapton, all those guys from the first solo album, Delaney and Bonnie, and it's not mentioned on here. And I've got to think that hurt the marketing. Bobby Whitlock's solo album, it's really good, but I've got to think if it had been presented more, when Joe Cocker did an album like that, they'd stick. Leon Russell's face on somewhere if he had played the piano on it, and people would have bought the album. It was a great, and all those albums. That big group picture on the back of the first Eric Clapton solo album. This is an all-star band. It's an all-star band, and so I guess I thought the marketing. I don't know what the story is, but it's really good. A couple songs I thought. When he plays the acoustic guitar, I thought the levels in terms of production were off. It's hard to record acoustic guitar, and I imagine harder then than it is now. And I thought when he was playing the organ, because he would have been singing and laying down that basic track, and when he was playing the organ on some of those, it's a bigger sound, and when he goes to acoustic, it's got that kind of muffled sound. And I think he might have been singing and playing acoustic guitar at the same time. I don't know that, but that's hard to do. It makes for a great feel to the song, but it's kind of hard to do in terms of sonic quality, especially back then. I noticed that on quite a few old albums where there's acoustic guitar and drums. Now, if you have something that's just like Peter, Paul, and Mary, maybe not so much. But if you have acoustic guitar trying to lay down a basic track with drums and basically turns into a rock song, it's kind of hard to mix an acoustic guitar in there. You can kind of mix it in later, but if that's kind of your core track, acoustic guitar and drums, it's hard. I thought the sound got a little muffled on a couple of them. Back Home in England's got an orchestra on it, strings. And that was my take, is why didn't Derek and the Dominoes do some of this? It's really sad. I think Eric Clapton and George Harrison both, but particularly Clapton. I don't think I don't think Derek and the Dominoes have been broken up for 5 minutes when he recorded this. I mean, he could have. I can tell he's kind of holding back, but not that he doesn't play some nice guitar. But there's not much lead guitar on this. That twangy guitar player, who's not someone whose name I recognized, is the one. But highly recommend this. It's just a flat out good album. It reminds me a lot of the early 70s. Takes me right back. It's got good singing on it, good songwriting, from the heart songwriting. And, a lot of good songwriting from that period. I think it's that Delaney Bramlett approach. It's kind of from the gut songwriting. I don't know what he would say about that, but it's kind of you get a feel and you go, and you sing from your heart, maybe make it rhyme, and but it's you never let anything get in the way of the feel of the song. And I think it's a very good album. I think it just makes me think maybe they could have taken a little more time in the studio in some areas, but also in some of the marketing and things, because like I said, I've been listening to rock and roll a long time. I don't think I'd ever really even seen this album that I remember seeing. So I think it's a good album. I really recommend it. The other thing I did is I read the Bobby Whitlock autobiography. I won't say too much about it. I think it's actually a very detailed autobiography. When you read the Eric Clapton autobiography or the Pattie Boyd autobiography, you can tell those are sort of professionally written in the sense that everything's kind of laid out very evenly, and there's an even level of detail all throughout the text. And so it's the kind of book you could maybe read on an airplane, buy in a store before you get on a transatlantic flight, and kind of begin it, and it's very kind of smooth. This reads to me more like a memoir. It's a story of a life. In some ways that makes it harder to read, but I think it's the kind of thing that over time, as the years go by, you've got a lot of detail, and you realize this someday this will be, valuable because of all the detail in it. The other thing I'll say about it is, unlike, when I read Pattie Boyd's autobiography or Clapton's autobiography, I'd kind of go to the parts I was most interested in. With Pattie Boyd, it was those Layla years, the Beatles years. Actually, after watching all these Bobby Whitlock videos, I was kind of more interested in reading about some of what happened to him after Derek and the Dominoes broke up. He gives to me the best version of the breakup of Derek and the Dominoes I've ever heard, because I always just heard, well, they kind of broke up in a flurry of drugs and personal problems, and then Eric Clapton went on a hiatus, and it was always, for years, that was kind of a murky period, and I didn't really understand it. And he really sheds light on how they were actually fighting. He tells that story about Eric Clapton tuning his guitar, Jim Gordon tuning his drums. But I read all that. It was interesting. But to me, an interesting part of this book, which maybe is a little counterintuitive, was his life after he comes back to America. I mean, he does some stuff with Stephen Stills. But by the mid-'70s, he kind of settled into not playing that much, at least out. I think, it seemed like he wasn't as active, at least in terms of the music scene. So I was interested in reading a lot of that. He has a channel. He can tell you more about it. Just a couple takeaways, though. I did read, seems like he, at one point, sold some of his rights to the Derek and the Dominoes catalog. It was interesting. He was a 25% holder. I guess that would be him, Jim Gordon, Eric Clapton, and Carl Rattle. And I guess that also means Duane Allman wasn't really in the band. He was kind of a guest star, which kind of reminds you that a lot of that album was like a pickup band, because they had Duane Allman there. So you're kind of doing stuff that the pickup band knows, because I played in pickup bands all my life. Sometimes it's fun, but, you end up doing songs that everybody can kind of get on the same page with. That's what I like about his album, is it's not a pickup band type album. It's got songs on it that are more developed. The other thing one of the things that struck me is he got hooked, I guess, on pharmaceuticals. And that kind of took him out of commission for quite a few years. And I guess it sort of confirmed one of the suspicions I've always had about medicine and our medical establishment. Here's a guy that had been through every recreational party, let's leave it at that, you can name. And what kind of did him in for a lot of years was doctor drugs, prescribed doctor recreational pharmaceuticals. There's a lesson there somewhere. You know, pharmaceuticals killed Elvis Presley. I don't think that man ever did anything, you know, so that I know of. Unless there's a big Elvis Presley closet somewhere with that we don't know about. But, you know, he was always so anti-hippie and everything, and then he was killed by pharmaceuticals. Those are some strong drugs. The other thing is, you know, the sort of beautiful love story that he has with Coco Carmel. One thing I guess I was surprised to realize, she was married to Delaney Bramlett. I didn't know that. I mean, I've watched all those videos, so maybe, you know, that's, but so she was kind of part of a rock and roll circle and married to Delaney Bramlett, and somehow or another ended up with Bobby Whitlock. So, and that's been a good relationship. I really recommend these. You know, I spent a couple bucks on them, but I don't regret it, between the album and the book. And I've been watching all those videos, thoroughly enjoy them. And I just wanted to share some of these thoughts. It's definitely, that album is good. I think there's some things that make me wish it had been treated a little differently, or maybe they could have, I mean, I feel like it's sort of a what could have been situation in a number of ways, but that album is good. When I listen to it, and I listened to it several times, it's a very good album. And I love the style. I love the variety of music. I love the instrumentation. And I wish that would have been a second Derek and the Dominoes album. Maybe with toss a, you know, kind of mix in some Eric Clapton songs, some of the best songs on that album. A few more guitar solos. Would have been an all-time classic. All-time classic. Kind of makes me sad. Makes me sad in a way, but the music goes on. After we're all gone, the music will still be around, and it's a good album. God bless you. Thanks for watching the channel.